All right, everybody, wonderful. So we have Rabbi Yehuda Weg. Can I ask you to unmute yourself? And likewise, Dovi, and we'd like to see you too. Oh, there you are, Rabbi Weg. If you'd like your wife to join you, we'd be, no pressure here, but we'd be very happy to see her as well. We were actually thinking that in honor of Yud Shvat, friends, which is the Rebbe's Yahrzeit coming up at the end of the month, we'll have a similar thing just with the Shluchis, whichever Shluchis we will. Yeah, what do you think? At any rate, all right, friends, I think we should begin. Again, a good Tevach and good Yom Tov. It's a good Tevach, Shavua Tov. It's good Yom Tov today. Tonight is 70 years, almost to the hour, and that our Rebbe formally assumed the mantle of leadership of Chabad Lubavitch. Many of us know the story. The Rebbe had resisted it, although he worked tirelessly around the clock to continue to expand the work of his the father-in-law, the previous Rebbe, directing Lubavitch worldwide. But in terms of accepting the position of Rebbe, which is, we can't even describe what that means, but this divine, eternal connection, it was on this night, 70 years ago, around 10:40 at night, that the Rebbe said a discourse, a maimah, which only a Rebbe says, and that indicated that he was accepting their leadership. So it's a cause of great celebration. We thought of no better way to celebrate the gift of the Rebbe that continues in ever deepening ways than hearing from some of the soldiers on the front line. This year, as we study the Rebbe's Maimer, the theme is the soldier on the front line. And so we have two Shluchim. I'll ask our interviewer, David Medina, to introduce them, and is going to lead the Farbrengen tonight. And as mentioned, in about 20 minutes or so, we'll be joined by Rabbi Bentzi Shemtov out in, I forgot the name of the place, somewhere British Columbia, never heard of it, till we started, till we sought him out. He will join us. And David, I forgot to tell you, L'chaim, that's the first thing you get. Rabbi Dovi, please unmute yourself.
I am very set up.
You're set up, good. Wow. Rabbi Yehuda Weg, you're also set up. Wonderful. Okay, take it away, David.
Well, welcome everyone. Thank you very much for giving me the honor, the pleasure of moderating this discussion tonight in honor of the 10th of Shvat. As many of you already know, the 10th of Shvat is the Yahrzeit of the 6th Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe. However, and maybe more importantly for our generation, and some of the themes that I would like to touch on tonight, is that in 1951, at this Farbrengen commemorating the first Yahrzeit of the Frierdiker Rebbe, our Rebbe, Menachem Mendel Schneerson, assumed his position as the 7th Lubavitcher Rebbe. Now, this was far beyond just a passing of the baton, and most likely, and something that the rabbi today mentioned in our community here in Montreal, most likely unbeknownst to those attending this Farbrengen, this event would really mark the beginning of a dramatic and fundamental change for the course of world Jewry. And jumping off some of the ideas that he had learned from his teacher, the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Rebbe challenged a small room of post-war Hasidim to become a veritable spiritual army. Sitting there in New York, just a handful of years after the Holocaust, these Hasidim might have imagined that the mission was to protect their own community from the draw to assimilation into American society. But the Rebbe, however, had something far greater in mind. And this was creating an army that would bring on the final redemption. So not just an army of a few and weakened soldiers in a last-ditch effort, the inevitable defeat, but an elite force that was charged with finding every single Jew, wherever they may be found, and bringing them home. A house, actually, a Chabad house. And this was what was so monumental about what happens in 1951 on Yud Shvat, and very, as the rabbi mentioned, this cusp that we're on tonight is almost exactly the timing that this would have been, the cusp between the 10th of Shvat and the 11th of Shvat. And literally overnight, we have a mission, a marching orders, and the creation of a brand new army. And as I say, not a weakened army, not one that's going to be faced with a challenge that is insurmountable, but in fact, an army that's going to change the world. Now, this is, what I thought was interesting when the rabbi mentioned it today was that in 1951, had you been one of the attendees of this Farbrengen, you would have thought this was absolutely crazy. And I've never looked at it that way. I've never seen it, because by the time I encounter Chabad is already on the other end of this success. But imagine, if you will, being there that night and looking at this and thinking, well, you must be crazy. You must be absolutely nuts. This is not at all the challenge that we're facing. We're just trying to survive assimilation. So by the time you get to me many years later, growing up in somewhat a traditional environment, hardly observant, if you asked me, though, who was the world's rabbi, without knowing his name or anything about Lubavitch or Chabad, I'd likely point to a large billboard that I passed every single day as I was on the bus headed to university, of this very stately, white-bearded man in a black hat with a simple message on top of the billboard, Mashiach now. So without any exposure whatsoever, not 25 years later, you could imagine that now all of a sudden this had become the world's rabbi. And if I had asked any other Jew in that generation who that was, they would say, well, that's the Jewish leader. That is our leader. Today, after so many years, thousands of Shluchim are located all around the world in these Chabad houses. And one of those Shluchim eventually found me. No, I am not traditional anymore. No, I am not non-observant anymore. Life has changed quite considerably for me. And what's marked me, and one of the reasons I was so excited to do this kind of discussion between Shluchim, is I've had the particular experience of meeting many, dozens of Shluchim all around the world. So before the pandemic, I would find myself on a plane to many destinations worldwide, in need of a Chabad house or a Chabad rabbi to help me, not only as I grew in my Yiddishkeit, but really even just to do the things as I became more observant, do the things that I needed to do. So when I needed a shul for Shabbos, there was a Chabad house. When I needed kosher food, there was a Chabad house. When I needed to shake lulav, there was a Chabad house. When I needed to say Kaddish for my father in the first year of his passing, there was a Chabad house. So it's interesting now when we look at it so many years later, 70 years later, and part of the discussion that I'd like to stimulate tonight is how did we go from this crazy idea, this notion of changing the world, coming out of the Holocaust, where assimilation, surviving assimilation was the goal, and getting to a global movement that has redefined Jewry. How did we get to this place? And I could think of no better way. When the rabbi asked me, he says, well, the best way to do this is to meet Shluchim, is to know these Shluchim and to hear their story. And I have to say, I love this idea, because that's how I fell in love with Lubavitch. That's how I connected to the Rebbe, is by meeting his Shluchim. And I'm not joking when I say it's Geneva, it's Amsterdam, it's Victoria, it's all over the United States. I've literally met dozens and dozens and dozens of Shluchim. And through this, I hope that tonight, and just meeting three of you, I think can be already quite fundamental. But give other people this experience that I've had the pleasure of having, is to understand Lubavitch for its grandeur and its success. So of course I agreed to do this. We welcome tonight Rabbi Yehuda and Ethel Weg, who are located in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I don't know if your wives will be joining tonight, but I even have questions for the wives, for the shluchas, if they will be joining us. Rabbi Bentzi Shemtov in Nanaimo, who will be joining us a little bit later. Of course, it's still Shabbos. It's still Shabbos in British Columbia. And Rabbi Dovi and Sarah Henig in China, which it's already tomorrow. So welcome you all. Thank you so much for giving us your time and for giving us this opportunity for us to talk today. Now, like I said, I don't really want this to be an interview. I really would like us to get to know each other. And I wondered, I don't know if the format works, but I wondered if even we could take questions from those attending to see if they had any ideas as to how we should approach this. And in that vein, I'd like everybody, I can't see everybody, but I'd like everybody to raise a glass, and let's open it up with a l'chaim and a good Yom Tov. Let me see. I can't see everyone, Rabbi. Rabbi,
Yeah.
you?
No.
No, I can't see.
I'm frozen too. I don't know why.
Oh, you're frozen, but you have a very nice pose for a frozen pose, though. I have to admit.
But
So
yeah,
l'chaim,
people can see
l'chaim.
l'chaim. I'm saying l'chaim. People can text their questions. I think that's the way to go. In the end, we'll open it up to talk maybe, but okay, you just froze now.
So
No, good. Go ahead. Good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So I thought we'd start at the beginning. I mean, when I land in any one of these destinations and I meet the shliach, the local shliach, who might be hosting me for Shabbos, who might be helping me with shaking lulav or doing whatever I'm looking for in that location at any given time. I start where we all start. Who are you? Where are you from? How long have you been connected to Chabad? I mean, we share our stories. So I thought maybe, Rabbi Weg, maybe you could open up. Seemingly from your white beard, I would say you're the most seasoned of the Shluchim on our panel tonight. I give you the opportunity to tell us a little bit about where you've come from and your connection to Chabad.
L'chaim, Yom Shavua Tov. First of all, I love the way you introduced this. And to be quite frank, my father was present at that Farbrengen exactly 70 years ago tonight. He was one of those handful of people that had come from Russia and made it to the United States and was actually there. He was enamored of the Rebbe even earlier, because as he put it, I asked him, what was it about the Rebbe that so took you? And he said the Rebbe's clarity. He said he had seen already many people that were great scholars and even doers, but they always, maybe we could say like this, maybe we could say like that. They were very mealy-mouthed. With the Rebbe, there was never a question. The Rebbe said, this is what it says in the Torah, and this is the way it is. And to my father, again, if you know him and his personality, that very much hit the mark. So I grew up in a Chabad family. On one hand, on my father's side, and that was the family. We were a Chabad family. But my mother is perhaps a more interesting story. My mother grew up in a very frum household, but not Chabad by any stretch of the imagination. That was, if you will, stage one. Stage two, she married a Lubavitcher, but she stayed in that mode for quite a few years. That she herself was not real Lubavitcher. She followed all the customs. That was the way the house was run. But she personally, she was married to a Lubavitcher. And I think there are a lot of people that end up in that space, that they're connected to Chabad, but they're personally not. And then I remember very clearly how it happened. I don't want to spend that much time on it, but there was a dramatic change in my mother. And she became herself very attached to the Rebbe and to Chassidus. And she threw herself into it in a very, very passionate way. And eventually she became a big advocate of this idea of Chassidus and the Rebbe. If you have a moment, I'll tell you a story that happened.
Please do.
My wife, God bless her, grew up in Manchester. If you know anything about Manchester, England, it makes Jerusalem look like Las Vegas. I mean, Manchester is a very intense Jewish neighborhood. And that's where she grew up in a Chabad family that goes back many generations. The Liberovs are well known. It's a very aristocratic family within Chabad. So she goes back many generations within Chabad. So she certainly grew up as Chabadnik, but it was in Manchester. When we were already married, somebody who knew her growing up, was very troubled by this idea that we moved to this very isolated place in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and so on. And he made a comment to my mother. He took her to such a horrible place, to a place where it's so cold in the winter and so hot in the summer, and he just trashed the whole idea that we had gone. And my mother took great offense at that, and she said, he took her? The Rebbe sent them. And that was the end of that conversation. Like, you touched the wrong nerve. And my mother had become very much that way, that she was a tremendous help and advocate and so on. So that's my story. In other words, that I on one hand grew up, always in a Chabad family. My father, like I said, was at the very first Fabrengen, so he was there from the ground floor. He continued and continues, Baruch Hashem, today to study Chassidus, and he was at all the Fabrengens and so on. But my mother went through those stages, so I got to see both sides of that. Anyway, I'll stop over here. I'd love to hear what
it's such an incredible thing to think, at least from my perspective, and I'm sure there are other people on this panel, to be the son of somebody that attended this Fabrengen. When I sat down to write these notes, opening this and going off of the discussion that the rabbi had in shul, trying to imagine myself in that room and wondering, would I be one of the, would I be one of the naysayers? Would I be one of the people who says, but this is just the craziest idea ever, and we're incapable of this? And to hear you say that, in fact, your father was there, and it became, it really became those marching orders that leads to you in Tulsa. I find that quite amazing. How about you, Rabbi Henig? How? An old Chabad family, an interesting past.
L'chaim.
L'chaim.
To say l'chaim 9 o'clock in the morning, this is also a process. Anyway, so I born in a Polish home. Chassidim, not Lubavitch. I cannot say Chassidim, not Lubavitch. Everybody connect to the Rebbe. But Lelever Chassidut Lelev is called. So, and my family have connection to the Rebbe through my grandfather. He's be really close to the Rebbe. But I be a yeshiva student, a bocher in yeshiva, 15-year-old, and it's be Helul. And by the way, I didn't be with a Paris. Maybe you go to Vishnitz in Montreal, you can see. And so in Elul, Chodesh Elul, before Rosh Hashanah, so in all the yeshiva talk about tshuva and how hard process is it to do tshuva. And the Rosh Hashiva spoke about it. And one of the shishis, I decided few of my friends to go to the Kotel to say Tehillim. And in the way to the Kotel, we hear people singing. And so I came to Kotel Tzemach Tzedek. This is a Lubavitch shul in old Be'ir Atika, in old city in Jerusalem. And I came to a Farbegen, Chayal Farbegen. And Rabbi Chaim Sholem Deitch is a mashpia in Israel. There sit in Farbegen. And what I saw is be opposite to what I teach me in yeshiva. Elul is everybody need to be serious and crying, and maybe go to make kulas in the snow. And here people celebrate. So I came to Rabbi Deitch and I asked him, what's going on? Elul, where's we need to be serious. And he showed me in Tanya and in Perek Yud Aleph, when we say Slach Lonu M'chalonu, so that's it. You don't have any more averos, It's Bochel Levatole, because we say Baruch Hashem Chanu Ma'abel Isleach. And then he gave me some cup. I didn't know what is that, but he's put his hand like that, and I finished the cup. This is the first time I saw L'chaim. And from then, I stayed there. And after a few weeks, months, the Rosh Hashiva from my yeshiva called my parents. I want to kick out that bocher Dovi Henig, but he's not in the yeshiva. I cannot kick him out, And I moved to Lubavitch.
Wow, that's a powerful story. That I have to, one of the things that I've encountered when I've met Shluchim around the world is that these stories are so unique. Young in the early years, I was always surprised to hear that I met a shliach that was not always a Lubavitcher. And I think that's one of the things that I was after here in asking this question, is really that the Rebbe's reach was so far beyond just Lubavitch. The message was so powerful and meaningful for Jewry at large, whether observant or non-observant. And to the point where now I would say, although Rabbi Weg is the most senior of our panel, the furthest is Rabbi Henig, and that mission has taken you quite far across the world. And I find that story to be quite interesting. Another one of the things that's always been interesting to me, and it's always sometimes it's a very romantic story, but sometimes it's a little bit more of a messy story. But it's how you got your shlichus. How did you get your place to not necessarily how you decided to become shluchim, but what was the process by which you ended up in Tulsa, Oklahoma? How did you ended up in Chengdu, China? And tell us a little bit, Rabbi Henig, tell us a little bit about how you ended up in China. How did you get this shlichus, this particular shlichus? Did you choose it? And was there any, do you think that any part of your choice or how you ended up where you are today, do you think the Rebbe played any part of that process?
So first of all, when we date, me and my wife, and we talk about shlichus, only about shlichus, this is what we want to do. And I always remember to my wife, she told me, I can go to the end for the world, but they need to be hot showers in that place. This is our condition of Mesiras Nefesh. If we have cold showers, it's not a place to go. So anyway, so we decided to go to Shlichus, and maybe in Tishrei, Chofta Tishrei. And everybody told me it's really hard to get a place to Shlichus. So I sent to all the head Shluchim a letter. I want to go to Shlichus, and I make a meeting in Kinus Shluchim right after it in Kislev with a lot of Shluchim. And me and my wife to tell them, we want to go. If you have a opportunity, you have a city, we can go there to do Shlichus. And I sit with Rabbi Avtzon, and Rabbi Avtzon told me, I have something for you, Rabbi Avtzon from Hong Kong. And he called me a few weeks after the Kinus Shluchim. He told me, Dovi, we have a city called Chengdu, and we have a program of Bar Ilan University to send there 250 students every year. So you have like a shlichus in campus kind of, but more for in the city, not officially with the university, but you can come in and already talk with Bar Ilan University, and we have from that 250 students, we have around 60 shomer kashrus and need to cook them food. And I tell him when we're talking about, he told me we're talking about Oder. It's a month and a half later. I tell him, listen, I need to talk with my wife. We discuss and we say, okay, let's try. The semester is 5 months, so let's try for 5 months. And we came, Rosh Chodesh Oder, we came to China, and I think to myself, may I have people wait for me with secretaries. And nobody wait, and we came. The first days, few weeks, a week and a half, we stay in a hotel, and we rent a place. And then we have something, a problem, a communication problem with the Bar Ilan University, with the university in China, and the deal closed, and the university didn't come. So we in the city, we don't have the 250 students, and the future, we say, going to be more and more. And we start to search where's the Jewish people. So we met like 9 Israelis, and we told us, the Israelis here charge of the bars. We have a lot of nightclubs in Chengdu. This is called like a freiliche city in the night. And go there and you can meet the owners of the nightclubs. This is Israelis, Jewish guys. And okay, so we go, me and my wife, we go there and we see Purim middle of the day, of the night, and we sit and me connect to the people. In the beginning, me be only around 40 Jewish people, not more from that. And a lot of travelers in the season of 3 months in a year. We have a lot of travelers, but in the beginning, only 40 people, and be so connect to them. But we actually, when we go to United States, 5 months later, to have my first daughter, Hannah, me and my wife never spoke about that. It's something we didn't want to speak if we go back to our shlichus in Chengdu or not. And after that, we sit together and we decided, right, this is not a lot of people. This is, you cannot give a speech for around 300, 400 people and be up. But the shlichus, the connect for every Jew we have in the city, and we change the lives. And we came back for that people, and Chengdu grow from there a lot. Well, this is our story.
So Rabbi Weg, how about Tulsa, Oklahoma? The cold and dreary Tulsa, Oklahoma.
First of all, heat is a much bigger issue over here than the cold. We have a relatively mild winter, certainly compared to Montreal, but even compared to other places. So yes, we does get cold here, but in the summer it gets crazy hot. We can have 110, 112 for weeks on end. Anyway, so that's sort of besides the point. First of all, I want to mention that my heroes, my personal heroes, are Dovi and the guys like him, that they went out after Gimel Tammuz and they're completely dedicated. They're going to tiny small groups, and that's a big part of my inspiration. I am just blown away by their dedication and by their success. It's literally incredible. If anybody has a question whether the Rebbe is still involved with shlichus, you need no better proof than the fact that there are shluchim today going to places that literally do not make any sense whatsoever. Right? You spoke about that before, that the Rebbe said about the world, we have to think of the world, and people didn't understand it. Quite frankly, the reaction that the Rebbe wasn't speaking sensibly was not a common reaction. Most people just had no idea what the Rebbe meant. It was just beyond their capacity to really imagine. And today, it's really, if you want to talk about it in logical terms, there's no explanation for the fact that there are shluchim like Dovi and Sarah and Bentzi. It's unbelievable where they're going, what they're doing, how much they're accomplishing. So to me, that itself is a tremendous source of inspiration and really comfort, if you will. We personally, as you mentioned, my beard is already white. I actually look older than I am, but nevertheless, the fact that Rebbe was very involved, hands-on in our coming here over here. So, and the Rebbe showed us tremendous attention. To sort of put it into context, I'm assuming that a significant part of your crowd is aware of Hey Tevis, the day that we just celebrated just a few weeks ago. And this week is actually the week that we celebrate our 34th anniversary since we came, because it was right after that. And Hey Tevis, the Rebbe said, L'chaim.
L'chaim, congratulations. That's I can't stop. I have to stop you to congratulate that.
After Hey Tevis, the Rebbe used many interesting phrases. One of them was Tzarap Allah Hagbalas. All limitations are gone. And it was really a new period, if you will, a new era in shlichus. Up until then, there was an unwritten, but nevertheless a rule. The fact is that shluchim did not go to states in the United States that had less than 10,000 Jews. When the Rebbe said Saraf al Hagbalas, the Rebbe told us that we should come here in a very exciting and the Rebbe was really all in on this idea that we should come here, and it opened up really a new era in shlichus that we came here. So in our personal case, and those others around us, the Rebbe was hands-on, very, very much involved. I think the most important part of all that is that every single shliach and shlucha that goes, no matter where they go, they have to realize that that's how the Rebbe looks at them. The Rebbe didn't look at me any differently. I didn't do anything to deserve it. I never learned enough to deserve that kind of attention. I never davened enough to deserve that kind of attention. I was ready to go on shlichus. The Rebbe got deeply involved, and therefore the Rebbe is deeply involved in every shliach. So when shluchim go today, it's really not any different, not a hair's breadth different than it was in those days. So you could perhaps learn from our experience where the Rebbe was so deeply involved, but it's true about every shliach everywhere in the world.
And in many ways, it's possible to say that, as you mentioned, the idea in 1951 of a worldwide army was so far away from the possibility that in many ways these shluchim, and I've ended up in some of these small places in the world, and you really get a sense like, in some ways, these are more handpicked than those original shluchim, because this was the end goal. The end goal was to end up in every corner of the world. And as you say, that's not only sort of a validation that this was never a crazy idea, but incredibly inspirational. That the same enthusiasm that a young shliach had then going, to a place in their backyard, as opposed to going halfway across the world, and in some cases with even greater enthusiasm. And I think that to me is really the success that we're living, and one that I only know. I only know this success. I don't know those early years. I only know. In fact, it's probably the opposite. I'm surprised if I need a shliach in a particular city and there isn't one there. And that I say, well, no, there must be something wrong. It's not possible. You didn't look hard enough. There's definitely going to be a shliach. 1 year, I needed somewhere to be in shul in Amsterdam. I needed a Shabbos and a shul in Amsterdam, and I contacted the shliach, the local shliach in downtown Amsterdam, and I didn't know at that time, but it really had been his first year on shlichus. It had been shlichus in another place, or he tried another place, but now he'd started really earnestly in Amsterdam. And I met him that year, and I spent Shabbos with him, and it was really wonderful. And I have a regular client in Amsterdam. So the next time I went there, I loved them. They were a young family. I spent Shabbos in a hotel nearby, but Shabbos lunch was in their kitchen. 3 young babies, less than half a room away. Crammed into a small European apartment in downtown Amsterdam. A year later, when I went back, because I had the opportunity to return there, he had grown so incredibly. The size of the Chabad, he was no longer in his dining room. He had a location. He had a shul. He had a dining hall, and they were opening a daycare. In one location, and they were opening a daycare in another location, so to service two communities in Amsterdam. And I remember, but say Shabbos, I took them out for dinner, him and his wife, and we went out for dinner. And I said to them, like, it's just crazy. It's not 12 months ago that I met you, and you were nothing. We were tiny. We were sitting in your dining room. And all of a sudden you have all of these successes, and I congratulated him personally. I said, you must be amazing. You must have done a great job. And he looked at me and he says, I don't feel like I did this job alone. And he says, every time I walked in to ask for a donation, or every time I went to a real estate broker to look for a location, or every time I needed to get more people for a particular event, I always felt like it was easier than I expected. And he gave me this line that I carry with me a lot. He says, it's almost as if you're walking in to get a loan, and the richest man in the city has given you a guarantee for success, is going to guarantor your loan. So of course the bank gives you the loan. And he said, in some ways, every time he walked into these meetings, he felt like he had the Rebbe's guarantee that it was going to work out. And rather than take the congratulations and take the sort of pat on the back, he said, I don't feel like I did this alone. So one of the things I wanted to know from you is, have you ever accomplished something that was completely, where you didn't expect to succeed at all? And you felt like you got a success that was far greater than what you expected as a result of either the Rebbe's involvement or the koyach that the Rebbe gave, or any kind of involvement the Rebbe might have had to sort of guarantee that success.
Rabbi
Rabbi
Dovi?
Henig? Well, we may have lost the connection to Rabbi Henig, or he's walking around. Okay, so Rabbi Weg, unfortunately, there he is. Were you able to hear the question, Rabbi Henig?
Sorry, I need to move. My kids come. So I didn't hear the question. I'm sorry. Tell me shortly.
I was saying, was there ever any, accomplishment, something in your shlichus, accomplished something in your shlichus that you felt you could not have otherwise accomplished without relying on the Rebbe? And by relying on the Rebbe, of course, I mean in a much grander sense. Did you ever get a result that was far beyond your expectation?
So I can say I not understand your question, because every day I cannot bear a day without that feeling. And my favorite app is I'm sorry for the mashpim, but my favorite app is the Rebbe's Oil app. Everything what I have every day, I have a problem, and from my kids' tummy cake or any difficult what I have here in China in the shlichus, so I write to the Rebbe, and this is what is keep me alive, keep me connect, and keep me growing. And sure, may have stories but I'm talking about the simple stories. Is like every day you may have difficult to live in China is not simple. And I can tell you a short story about when we started the shlichus here 9 years ago. So 3 months after me came to Chengdu, one day, Friday morning, police came to our Chabad house, and kind of arrest us, took us to an investigation, took me to one room, my wife to another room, and may show us the ayin, royo, oizen, shamas, v'kol ma'asecha b'sefer nichtovim, everything what we do, we move, we talk, the Chinese know what we're doing. And the police guy asked us what we're doing here, and why in Saturday we not touch lights when we go, why you go in Starbucks and ask someone if he's Jewish or not. And after 6-7 hours of this investigation, the police officer took out a Rebbe picture, small Rebbe picture he took from our Chabad house, what we give, with the address of the oil in the back, and asked me, who is this guy? I saw you have a big picture of him in your house. Also, you give a picture of him. So I tell him, this is my father. So he took the phone and he started speaking Chinese, a few minutes. And after that, he told me, Shimon Fonlich from Beijing, this is your brother? The rabbi from Beijing, the shliach in Beijing, is your brother? I tell him yes. I say, okay, now you can go. And release us to go to Chabad house. So first of all, this is true. Also the Chinese understand the Rebbe is our father. And this is how we feel to the Rebbe. He take care of everything to have the best, like a father wants a son to have the best life and the comfortable life from A to Z. And also, Chassidim and Mishpocher. Also, the Chinese understand The other shliach in Beijing is our brother. Also, Rabbi Weg and Rabbi Shemtov and Rabbi New and you, everybody is a big family, and we have the best father.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I'd like to welcome Rabbi Bentzi Shemtov, who's joining us minutes probably after Shabbos. Welcome to the panel.
Thank you.
It's really great that you should join us. We've gotten started though without you, and you'll have to forgive us. But to put you on the spot immediately, I think maybe we should hear from you a little bit. We were talking now about major accomplishments, having a major accomplishment, and whether or not you've ever had an accomplishment in your shlichus that you felt was beyond your expectation, almost a little bit miraculous, where you felt like the Rebbe himself was guaranteeing that success.
Every part of it. I wasn't here, but coming to Nanaimo, which is in Canada, but the other end of Canada, and if you'll give me a chance later on, I could tell you more about it. But really, every part, from the way we ended up here, from the fact that we're here, from the Jews we met here, and from the advancements that each one of them had in their Yiddishkeit, really every part is only with the Rebbe's help, the Rebbe's koyach, the Rebbe's strength. Start off with one that's happening now. So you're asking, a year and a half ago, Gimel Tammuz, my son, we have a tire. When we originally moved to Nanaimo, so we didn't think we would have a minyan for a long time, because that's what people told us. There was barely Jews here, and a minyan, who could even imagine that? But then a few months after we came here, someone needed a baby naming, so we made a minyan and we put together minions. And we said we'll do it once a month. So we got a Torah a few months later. We needed a Torah, so first we borrowed from some of the Chabad houses a couple hours away, but we needed something a little more permanent, so we got one from a Torah Gemach, a Torah where they loan Torahs to new Chabad houses, and we got it. But they give it to us for 6 years. So, as the time goes on, you start, what's going to happen afterwards. So a year and a half ago, Gimel Tammuz, we were in New York, and my children wrote to the Rebbe, requesting from the Rebbe Bracha that we should get a new Torah for our Chabad house. This is, they wanted one, and they decided to ask the Rebbe. That's their, if you need something, that's where you ask. So they wrote it in. Anyways, they right away started, took out a little bag and started going around to their uncles and aunts and grandparents saying we're starting a campaign for a new Torah. And they collected $50, whatever they could for a new Torah. Anyways, a year later, which was this past Gimel Tammuz, we couldn't be in New York because of this current pandemic. And it's the first time, and obviously it was difficult for me and my family not to be by the Rebbe for Gimel Tammuz. And just this feeling of feeling far and but it is what it is, right? We're in a pandemic. What are you supposed to do? 2 days before Gimel Tammuz, I get an email from a woman asking me how much does a new Torah cost. So I says, it's a good question. Why don't you come over? Let's talk about it. So she comes over. We sit outside, and her father, which is from Montreal, passed away a year ago. Actually, tonight's his yard site. And so she wanted to know how much a new Torah cost. So I told her how much a Torah cost. So she said, okay, I'll give a new Torah to your Chabad house, or at least majority of it. She sponsored majority of it. Could be some of you know who it is, Michael Rosenfeld from Montreal. But anyways, this happened literally a day before Gimel Tammuz, a year after my children asked for it. But something we would have never thought, and in Nanaimo we would ever get a new Torah. At best they use Torahs from somewhere. But exactly a year after they asked, on Gimel Tammuz, the Rebbe was sending us a message: "You're with me, I'm with you." And Baruch Hashem, we started the beginning of the writing, and the summer we'll make a siyum with Hashem's help.
Wow, that's a beautiful story. Thank you. When I ended up a Shabbos in Tokyo, I was looking for the Chabad house there, And at the time, I wonder if at the time I knew how to use Google Maps, or anyway, I got completely lost. I was entirely lost in Tokyo. It's minutes to Shabbos, and I'm looking for, I suppose, a shul. I end up in a strange way asking. At the time, I had a picture of the Rebbe in my pocket, and in my wallet. So very much, I think the same picture probably I got from the air. And there was this Japanese lady, and I thought, I'm just going to figure the shliach must look like this. So I'm going to show her a picture and say, do you know anybody that looks like this around here? I take out the picture, and lo and behold, yes, the black hat. She's starting to make motions with the black hat, and she points me to what looks like this tiny, it didn't even really look like anything. It was this tiny little apartment. I had to go up the stairs, and there I was in this Chabad house. And, cut to several years later, when I ended up in Moscow for Shabbos, by that time I was kind of used to the fact, you could find Chabad houses of any size, and you might not expect it. And here it seemed like it was also in the middle of nowhere, and there's a bunch of apartment buildings, so it's probably going to be a small Chabad house. But no, it is not a small Chabad house. It literally takes up 2 city blocks. It's absolutely enormous. So I thought one of the things that might be interesting to us tonight is, well, what does your Chabad house look like? What did it look like when you started? What does it look like today? How has it changed over the years? As I say, I've spent time in Shluchim's dining rooms, and I've also spent, I've spent the Shabbos in a hall of 500 people, catered to 500 people. Rabbi Weg, probably celebrating such an anniversary, that Chabad house has changed a lot, both location and character. What did it look like when you started? What did it look like? What does it look like today?
Like everybody else, we started in our dining room, and we rented an apartment, and that's the way it went, for a while. Today we're at the other end of the spectrum, if you will. Things have changed in a dramatic way. We are the officially recognized Orthodox community in Tulsa, to the degree that it exists. It's not really an Orthodox community over here, but I am the Orthodox rabbi, and there's a list officially in the Federation of senior rabbis, and I'm on that list. I'm 1/3 of that list, of senior rabbis, and that happens, with the course of time and generations and so on. Today we're teaching children that I married their parents, and I knew their grandparents, very well. So, in the course of time, things change, and every shliach has that kind of staying power because of the Rebbe. The very fact that we're here, if you don't mind, I'll tell you a very quick story, sort of as an introduction, if you will. Because the story that we heard from Rabbi Shemtov and Rabbi Henig, that every single day, and it has that kind of impact on you. When you listen to it, it literally, it expands your mind to see the deep relationship that exists between Shluchim and the Rebbe, and how their whole existence is really Rebbe. This is a story I heard from at one of the conferences. I think it was Rabbi Yossi Rubin, who was telling a fascinating story. It's a short story, but I find it fascinating, and to me, it says a lot. He lives in Albany, New York, and he from time to time he packs all the kids into his van, and he just drives them to the oil. That's something they do on a regular basis, or at least did a few months ago, and we'll start doing it again. Anyway, when they leave, he tells them a Rebbe story. He tells them a story about the Rebbe, and the kids all wait, with bated breath to hear the story about the Rebbe. As he was leaving, and he started to drive, the kids asked him, Tati, Daddy, tell us the Rebbe story. And for some reason, his mind went completely blank. And he couldn't think of any story whatsoever. And he kept trying and trying, and time is passing, and every once in a while the kids ask him, "No, do you have a story?" And for some reason he can't come up with a story about the Rebbe. And finally one of his kids said to him, "Tati, we are the Rebbe story." And there's so much truth to that. This girl got it. She got it completely. The very fact that Shluchim are the places that they are today and that they're successful to the degree that they are. Okay, so our Chabad house, Baruch Hashem, we have over 2 acres. Land is very cheap in Oklahoma. So we have a very large, a piece of land. We have enough space to build, a boys yeshiva and a girls yeshiva and who knows how many other things. But nevertheless, the building is actually very small. But here's an interesting piece of Tulsa Jewish history, if you will. We live walking distance from the JCC, from the Jewish Community Center. Jewish Community Center is a gorgeous, gorgeous building. And it's over 22 acres large. That's besides what they just added now, so it's even larger, probably over 30 acres. I have no incentive to build a building because we have complete access. When we first came, we were very much on the outside. All the big cannons came out to destroy us and so on. And today, literally, their entire campus is ours for the asking. And we've used it more times than I can count. So we have our own Chabad house. We have lots of space and we have parking and mikveh and so on. But beyond what we have over here, if we have any issue or any event that's larger than we can handle in our small Chabad house, we have right down the street. We have a very, very large campus. And our relationship with the Federation itself is something that's remarkable. And again, clearly the Rebbe was involved, and I could go into some details about that, but it's very obvious to us that this did not happen on its own. And every shliach has these kind of stories, where in one way or another, you just fall into place.
And Rabbi Shemtov, how about your Chabad house? At what stage are you at? If we join you in Nanaimo, will it be in the dining room just off your children's bedroom?
So we're in our house, but I'll answer that question a little. It's not in our dining room. When we first moved here, and when you're first moving to a place where everyone's telling you there's another 3 Jewish families, there's no other Jews. So you're very hesitant, and obviously to see the Rebbe's brachas really is reassuring that you are in the right place. So we were trying a couple months before we moved here. We were trying to secure a place that we could live, to rent. Just to find a place to rent. We sent in a bunch of applications to different houses, and nothing was working. When we came here, we asked why. Like we asked one of the realtors, why didn't you answer us, and why wasn't it working? They said, no one moves to Nanaimo from Toledo, Ohio. It's just so it's obviously a scam. Who else is moving? Anyways, we landed here on a Tuesday. We ended up, we have my brother-in-law 2 hours away on the island. It's a big island. So he's in Victoria, Rabbi Kaplan, which some of you may know. And so we stayed by him. And the next day we drove up here to check out 2 houses to rent, that were up for rent, to see which one will work. And the second house we came into, which is the one we're in now, was just the perfect house. Like you walk in, there's like a big 21 by 21 room. And the whole house is upstairs, kitchen, dining room, bedrooms are upstairs, but like the walk-in floor has this big rec room. And it was like, just what we needed. And, I asked the guy, we actually saw this for like a month before. No one else wanted to rent it. So the guy's like, we were waiting for the perfect family. I'm like, I don't know if I'm the perfect family, but okay. I don't know if you want a Chabad house in your house, but anyways, so we're here and thank God it's working out very nicely. It's a separate floor for the Chabad house and we live upstairs.
It's very nice. How about in China?
So tell what, a year ago, before the epidemic, before the corona, so we had a big, large Chabad house, 3 floors with a shul, a restaurant, kindergarten, also like hotel, like 2 rooms for visitors who want to stay for Shabbos. And when the COVID started, so everybody ran away from China because nobody didn't came to the world. And after we only like form a community of 350 members, only 12 people stay. And I got a phone call from the Israeli consul, also from the American consul, said, Rabbi, you crazy? You have children, you need to go away from China. For a little bit of time till the COVID is going to be like 3 months. Nobody know then what's going to be. So me go out for United States, me 7 suitcases, and after that China can be locked down, and for 6 months we hold our Chabad house, we pay rent, but nobody came in. And sure, also the donation stops slowly. And we discussed we need to give the lease back, and also the contract. We can have a way to go out every month to pay $8,000 for nothing, And when we come back, we're going to build that again. We're not a real estate company. We take care of Jewish people, not take care of buildings. So we give it back, and when we came back, it's also an interesting story. When we came back, we be in a government quarantine for 2 weeks. And when China be open, we got special visa, and we came back. It's a long story, whatever. And we have like 25 people in Chengdu from our community already. People come back before us. So I send them to find us a place. I tell them, now we not need a large Chabad house like before, but you need to be like at least 2 floors for Chabad house and 2 floors for our family to live, or 1 floor, whatever place, but it need to be separate. So our community members tried to find us place, and we didn't find, and go around and ready. We be 2 weeks in quarantine in the government quarantine in Shanghai. And after a week in the quarantine, my wife told me, Dovi, we didn't write to the Rebbe about it. I said, you're right. And all the craziness, we didn't sit together and write to the Rebbe about, please, Rebbe, help us to find a place. Like an hour later, 2 hours later, we got a phone call from one of our community member, and tell us, Rabbi, we find you the perfect place. You understand? And I fight with them, and we got a good price. Please let me to sign up for you. So I talked to them, someone going to sign up, contract, something we're going to live, to be in the Chabad house there. But we didn't know what to do. So I called my Mashpia told me, it's not for me, please. Write to the Rebbe about it. So write to the Rebbe, and I got a feeling this is the place. He show us pictures and a video. We signed up the contract. We came to the new Chabad house. We didn't choose. Our community chose, and it's beautiful. And we have also a place this is the 4 floors. 2 floors is the Chabad house, 2 floors is our house, and we have also separation, 2 kitchens. It's beautiful, Baruch Hashem. And I was saying we start again. Now we came back after the 8 months we didn't be in Chengdu. We came back we start again with building, but we came back to the same Jewish people, the same souls, the same people. This is our shlichus. Our shlichus is not buildings. We are not real estate. Our shlichus is atem telok to echad echad.
That's wonderful. What does that community look like in China? You say a large community, and you've come back to that community. Are they comprised of business people, travelers?
So before COVID, we have around 350 people. Business people, a lot of startup. Chengdu is the Silicon Valley of China. And also the Israeli consulate is also around 14, 15 family members. But now we have around 55 people. And slowly the process to get visa to come back to China is really hard. So a lot of our community members want to come back, but a lot of our community members tell us already, we're going to stay in Israel. or in United States. And you know, a lot of people, if so a lot of people call me and tell me, Rabbi, I'm going to stay in Israel, and I'm so happy for them to stay in Israel because he can find a Jewish goal, and you know, he can do a Jewish life better in Israel or maybe in Montreal from China. And if our job is to be a lot of members, so I need to actually to be opposite, to tell them, please come back. Oh, why you stay there? No, our jobs is to connect them to Judaism. If for him, it's better to be in Oklahoma or in Montreal. This is the place.
Or maybe Nanaimo, BC.
Exactly.
Rabbi New said he'd never actually heard of Nanaimo, BC until he heard of your shluchis. I don't think he's not made it to being a great Canadian. He's still too Australian, even many decades later. I have heard of Nanaimo, BC, but I am curious to hear what that community looks like there.
So the community here is, it's a very spread out community as far as, this area. We serve a space of, our members are in a 2-hour driving radius from us. We're in the middle and we have people coming 45 minutes, mainly 45 minutes one way and 45 minutes the other way. But then, Rosh Hashanah and Kippur and some other times we have from an hour and a half from the North Island. It's a huge island, as those of you that do know the Canadian place. It's the size of, it's bigger than Eretz Yisrael, the island.
Yeah.
But there aren't most of it isn't. People don't live on it. We live in the Central Island. Rabbi Kaplan's in the South Island. We don't know exactly how many Jews. We're constantly finding new Jews. It's unbelievable, the neshamas that are hidden over here, that are living here for 13 years, 15 years. Just Hanukkah, someone came to pick up, one of the Hanukkah in the boxes, and he put on tefillin. He must be in his, I don't know, if he must be about 40. He said he hasn't put on tefillin since his bar mitzvah. He's from Toronto. I'm living here for 13, 15 years. So people come here, a lot of retirees, we have a little bit from Montreal. I mean, a lot of the Jews here have roots in Montreal. Some of them retired from Montreal. Some of them were in Calgary and then retired here. Those are the retirees. And then we have, the young families that, most of them, are married out and their partners from here. 90% intermarriage over here, 90% rate of intermarriage. So we have, those young families. In the beginning, we only knew a few of them. Now Hanukkah, we just had a, children's thing on Zoom, and we had close to 40 children from this large area that joined us on the Zoom call, on the Zoom thing for Hanukkah. So we have, a little bit from every, we have some retirees, some young people, 2 lawyers, 2 doctors, a little bit of everything. And they're here, it is a destination over here. People are, looking to come to the island. It's amazing to find those neshamas. I'll tell you a story from one of those families that was living here for 13 years. They're from Ontario, and her mother married someone non-Jewish, and her grandparents basically, kicked out her mother from the family, and she grew up with nothing. A little bit of Hanukkah, but that was basically it. As she grew up, she checked out other religions, and a little bit over a year ago, her bubby passed away. And she was there when her bubby passed away, and she felt she had to do something, reconnect her Judaism. So she found us here, and we spoke. And I told her, why don't you start lighting Shabbos candles in memory of your bubby? And she did. Ever since then, this was again a year and a half ago this summer, she lit Shabbos candles, and she's married to someone not Jewish. She has two children. And over the last year, she's been coming to classes and really coming a lot closer. And just Friday, she sent me a text. They were up at the mountain an hour away. And her son, who just had his bar mitzvah on Zoom because of the pandemic, forgot his tefillin in Nanaimo. So she drove back to Nanaimo to pick up his tefillin to take it back. So this is, talking about someone that, till a year and a half ago had nothing, barely knew that they were Jewish. The children knew nothing. And now they picked it up. But, a lot, again, so some of the people here are, typical Canadian, I would say, traditional, went to Cheder, went to Hebrew school, know how to read. Some of the, more the retirees, the younger people are, know very little. And, that's why we're here. That's what the Rebbe sent us, to find each one of those souls, slowly but surely, find them, connect them, put on tefillin with them. These are the buildings we build over here.
Yeah. Rabbi Henig has a little visitor in his Zoom chat, and it makes me think of all the Chabad houses that I've visited, and I have to say I have as much of a relationship with some of the children of the Shluchim that I've met as I do with the Shluchim themselves. Shluchim that I've visited several times over the years, I've seen their children go from young children and then met them at the oil at Fabringens at Yeshiva. And we often talk about the Shluchim, but in that Shluchim family, we have the Shliach, the little Shluchim, that are part of that journey as well. Rabbi Weg, what was it like raising an Orthodox Lubavitch family in Tulsa, Oklahoma? And as you say, the Orthodox rabbi without an Orthodox community. What challenges did you face, and where are they now?
Okay, so first of all, I want to welcome Ms. Henig, and my heart melts when I see Shluchim kids from all over the world. And I understand it very well. To be quite frank with you, the biggest challenge we ever faced was the education of our children. Our eldest son, who Rabbi Shemtov knows, and perhaps others also, left home completely at 8 years old, because we could no longer provide for him the kind of education that he really needed and what he was up to. So if there was anything that was fairly difficult, that was it. But I want to pick up a little on something that some of the others said, and that is like this. The Rebbe made it very clear to us, and I think Shluchim as a whole understand it very well. Our objective is to connect to individuals. It's not about institutions. It's not about buildings. Of course, we need buildings and so on, but it's very much secondary. Our connection is very much on a one-to-one basis. And when we meet somebody, we connect to them as a person, as a Jew. And forever that question is on my mind about the people that I know. What is their next step? For one person, it might be putting on film, another once a week. For somebody else, it might be Shabbos candles. For somebody else, after Kapata and Rabbeinu Tamston. For other people, it's just saying Baruch Hashem. And really not really up to anything more than that, but if they could incorporate the idea that their life is connected to Hashem, and that what happens to them is directed by Hashem, that itself is a tremendous accomplishment. So it varies tremendously from one person to another. And that's true about children also. Every child is an individual, and we have to connect to them where they're at and see where can we take them and how do we get there. Today the world has changed in a very big way because of the online school. I'm sure that some of your people are aware of that. Today there's a school. When we came to Oklahoma, there was no online school, and it wasn't that way for years, quite a few years. But that was a game changer. The fact that today children can get online, and it's connected to technology, and there's a lot of different aspects to this. But by virtue of the fact that a child can connect to other children of their age and their learning level, and the school is. Let me digress here for a moment. In our days, for a while, the schools in Crown Heights tried very hard to provide education for our kids and for other kids in similar situations. And basically, they put a camera inside an existing classroom. And frankly, it did not work. It cannot work. The first time it started to actually work was when they made classes specifically for these children. and the teacher has only students that are online. And they have all these screens in front of them. The technology is very, very advanced, and it's very impressive. And the teachers are excellent. Our experience, because some of our younger kids, by the time they were finishing school, not when they started, but at the time that they were finishing school, were able to be online for a year or two. And that was a tremendous gift, really. So that was a real game changer. And today it's something that Shluchim really depend on to a great deal in terms of raising the family. I can just say that Baruch Hashem, our oldest son, is married today. He's a shliach himself, with 6 kids, and he has a Chabad house of his own. And does it get better than that? When your children become shluchim themselves, that's about as good as it gets.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about those early years where there was an online school, and that seems to me, being a father of several young children, that almost seems like something that would be insurmountable for me, that would be difficult for me, a challenge that I would feel might break me. Did any of you ever feel that way? Did you ever feel like it's just enough? I mean, I know Rabbi Henig, it's even the stories you tell of the last 8-9 months. I wonder if I would be brave enough to overcome that. Have you ever faced that insurmountableness and looked at it and found strength? What did you rely on to find strength? I know that in the times where I feel that things are challenging or difficult, and everybody has their own way of connecting to the Rebbe, but for me it was I'm lucky enough to be in Montreal. It's visits to the Oil is a cheap ticket and an hour and a half away. What ways have you relied on the Rebbe to overcome these otherwise insurmountable challenges? Rabbi Henig?
So in the time we been in New York, so we stay, one of our donors give us his house in upstate New York. In the time, nobody there in the winter. And we stayed there like for 4 or 5 months. And we decided every time I have that feeling, what you're talking about, and worse from that, we're going to go to the Rebbe. So he's come up, we go to the Rebbe, like, open the car, we drive 2 hours, and we go to the Rebbe like 2 times a week and more sometimes. One time, my wife go to buy stuff, vegetables in the store. And I call her after 40 minutes, 1 hour, what's going on? You need to take 10 minutes. I feel so bad. I'm in the highway to the Rebbe. I can't going to come back in 3 hours. So this is the answer. Without the oil and Baruch Hashem, we go to United States, not to Israel, because I don't know if or to Montreal or whatever. If we be in another place, I don't know how we can continue to lachzik mamad, to hold on that 9 months.
Rabbi Shemtov, how about you?
Like I said, going in types of shlichus like ours, and I believe like Rabbi Henig and Rabbi Weg as well, every step of it is only with the Rebbe's koyach, the Rebbe's brachas, and you feel it. Without it, it just doesn't work. It's like that. Yud Aleph Nissen, I always like to try to be by the Rebbe. As before I got married, I was always there, and after I got married, and when we moved here, obviously we wanted to try. So the first year my wife was due, and it was the first year Pesach, so I did not make it. But the next year I went in. To get from here to New York takes roughly about anywhere 12 to 15 hours. 2 stopovers and till you get there. And so for Yud Aleph Nissen, it's a few days before Pesach. So you take the 12-hour flight. You're there for a few hours, and then you come back. So I think it was my first year there. I got an email while I was there. I got an email from a fellow which had 2 aneurysms and in Toronto, and he ended up moving here. He told me that before his strokes, and he was a little bit more connected. He used to put on tefillin, but then he because of all his health conditions, he left everything. And slowly but surely, you know, we spoke and we studied together, and he reconnected. So when I was there by the oil for Yud Nissen, I get an email from him, and I'll just read it to you. And he didn't know I was there, but he sent me this email on the Rebbe's birthday. The Rebbe's birthday is tomorrow, and you are following in his image. Let us all keep it up. You know, a clear indication that, you know, the Rebbe is telling me that, you know, there's Jews there, you're doing your job, you're getting it, and these are the things that keep us going. You know, one more thing, that I was going through a little bit of a health condition with one of my children, and you know, I would have loved to just jump into the car, jump into the plane, and just be in New York, but it was during the pandemic. And you know, one of the hardest things of this whole pandemic is not only, you know, even on a regular day, I know I can't jump in on a flight. You know, when it hits Thursday night, and I know that even if I try hard, I can't make it to the aisle before Shabbos. You know, it gets hard sometimes, especially Yud Shvat or Yud Nissen. But during the pandemic, it's months, and you don't know what's going to happen. And I had a health issue with one of my children, and obviously I wrote into the Rebbe, but it's that feeling I can't be there. And it's like, you know, 10 o'clock at night, and me and Rabbi Henig learn, you know, 4 or 5 times a week. Times those work out. You know, I'm 3 hours behind. It's 15 hours, it just works out. But you know, but during the pandemic, we really didn't learn. It was the 3 hours really kill it. And so we didn't learn during the pandemic for most of the time. And that night, after I wrote in, he calls me up at 2 o'clock in the morning, his time. He said, I just felt I had to go to the aisle, and he's there at 2 o'clock in the morning. And, you know, for me, it's 10 o'clock. And he said, why don't we learn together? For me, it was like, oh my God, you know, this is, you know, the Rebbe is clearly, you know, learning with someone at the aisle right after you wrote in. And it was just connecting to the Rebbe and being able to see how the Rebbe is with us. And it will
I
all
mean,
be good.
I had another in Geneva, and probably the most difficult exchanges I've ever had with a shliach is when I was in Geneva, and I was headed from Shul back to his house for Shabbos dinner. And at the time, and still today, I was very proud of the Montreal Torah Center. I was proud of being a member there. I was proud that it was a big shul. I was proud that it had a lot of shiurim. I was proud of all the work that it did. And very much in casual conversation on the way back to his house, he started asking me questions about how many shiurim there are and how many people come to shul. And very, very, very dry and straightforward character. And at first, I, totally unassuming, and I didn't think anything of it. But progressively, the questions got more intense. How many Jewish people live within 50 blocks of the Montreal Torah Center? How many children of those people go to Jewish day schools on a regular basis? And I felt challenged. I felt even a little bit upset that you would take the thing that I'm so proud of and even suggest that it's not big enough. And I went through dinner, and it happened to be a very hot time in Geneva, so that the table was filled with a mix of people that were there. It's crazy, for Ahmadinejad's speech. And so there were a whole bunch of people from the WHO at his table. It was hot political debate. Usually I think that this is really interesting and I would debate it, but in the back of my mind, I just kept getting upset about this interchange. Like, why would you, this is Leah. I would just get upset about, why did he think it wasn't enough? And then on the walk home back to my hotel, I thought to myself, well, what he's really saying is, how do you measure success? He must have seen how proud I was. He must have seen that I thought it was great, but how do you measure success? And challenging me to think that if there's a soul that isn't in shul on Shabbos, or his children are not getting a Jewish education, that it's never enough. How do you measure your successes? I start with you, Rabbi Weg. How do you even call them successes? What do you put in your reports to the Rebbe? And has there ever been a time where you felt like your successes or your challenges were being acknowledged by the Rebbe?
Again, we were very fortunate, that the Rebbe, very directly, before Gimel Tammuz, recognized our challenges and so on. Again, we measure success by individuals and by individual mitzvahs. So that's the measure of success. In other words, does every Jew in Tulsa know me? And the answer is yes. I walk into the hospital rooms. Nobody ever asked me, "Who are you?" It has never happened, not once. By the way, if anybody knows Rabbi Pevsner in Geneva, they would understand exactly what you said, because that's the way he thinks. He comes across perhaps a little dry, but man, he is driven. Okay. So that's how we measure success, by individuals. And as I mentioned before, what's their next step? And that will be my success. If I can bring them from where they are now to where they could be, at this time, that is success. That's the only measure of success we ever use, is again, individuals. And it varies from person to person. If I could digress for a moment and go back to some of the questions that were asked, some of the comments that were made regarding children and so on. I think, and it may take a certain amount of understanding of who we are and the lives that we lead and so on to be able to appreciate this, but it's very much a fact. I think that every shliach in a small place for sure, and in larger cities also, look at their children as not their own, but as the Rebbe's children. And therefore, they're completely dedicated. If the Rebbe in his kindness loaned you one of his kids and let them grow up in your house, how would you treat them? That's the question that was always on my mind. This kid is not mine. I have no explanation for him. He's bigger than me. So obviously he's the Rebbe's kid, and the Rebbe in his kindness allowed me to raise him and another one and another one. And those are, that's how I look at them. I look at them till today. These are not my kids, these are the Rebbe's children, and therefore there's nothing insurmountable. And we treat them with great respect. When you have the Rebbe's kid in your house, you treat them well. And that's true about every shliach as a whole, and certainly in the most obvious way about shluchim that are in very small places. Speaking about children, I want to digress. I'll just share a story with you that actually happened with my wife and myself. When we met, before we were engaged, to be quite frank, I was just nuts about shlichus. And there was no question in my mind that I absolutely had to go on shlichus, and I had no idea where. But I knew that there wouldn't be any limitations whatsoever. Wherever we would go, that would be just fine. As long as we're shlichus, that's all I cared about. Now, I'm meeting a young lady, and how do I convey this message to her? How will she understand what I'm talking about? And I have to admit it, it's not pleasant, but this is the reality. I came up with this nefarious plan that I made up, complete and utter untruth. When we met during our meeting, I told her that I was trying to think of what's the worst possible place. What's the equivalent of Afghanistan today? And at that time, I came up with Turkey, because it had a very large Jewish community. It was a Muslim country. You're not allowed to show, not allowed to dress in a religious way in any obvious way, and so on. And it didn't have a shliach at that time. So I told her that actually it's already been arranged, and I am the shliach to Turkey. It was not a shred of truth in there. I told her, but if this shidduch goes ahead, if we're actually going to get married, not only are you marrying me, you have to decide whether you're ready to go to a Muslim country. It had just been very shortly before that, there was a terrorist attack, which the world was up in arms. They came into a shul between Mincha Ma'ariv, 17 people were killed, and so on. And I told her, don't answer me now, just think about it, whatever. And probably within a minute, she said, yeah, we should continue. I said, why don't you think about it? It's not for everybody. That's where I'm at. But perhaps you're not. Think about it. And she blew me away and put me in my place, actually. But her answer was, if the Rebbe sends us, what's the difference where? And we got engaged next day. I mean, it was a better answer than I could possibly, even ask. So
Yeah.
then later I had to admit to her, whatever. That's a separate story for some other time.
Well, I would love if it was up to me, I would keep you all here for a very long time, and I hope that one day my travels bring each of your Chabad houses so we can continue this conversation. But slowly time is disappearing. I know that Rabbi Henig has places to be. It's a whole brand new day for him. I want to thank you.
We have a Sunday school, 11 o'clock. We have in the Sunday school, we have 4 kids. And 2 kids is age 13 for 12, 13. This is my job to entertain, you know. I need to take off the shirt, take off the tie, and play with the kids in 20 minutes.
And I think there is no better way to end this program tonight than in that way. That really what drives each of your work is the people you do it for, and that's far more important than staying here and continuing to tell me stories. I want to thank you all for your contributions. I hope that your stories have been as meaningful to everyone who's been attending here as they were to me. I know that the world is a very different place now than it was just a year ago, but the mission endures, and through your stories we see that this mission that is driven by people, and each of you in every one of your ways in answering those questions has said it quite accurately, that it is really about the Jews that you find. And I will tell you this, I don't know if you often get thank yous, but you get one from me. As I said, I've met many other shluchim just like you from all over the world, and I do feel that the Rebbe found me because he made you, and he created this army that wouldn't stop until they found me. And I think that I imagine that you are doing this every single day for Jews, and as you say, Rabbi Weg, just take them to the next level. It doesn't need to be a miracle story. It just needs to be taken to the next level. And from this crazy idea at a Fabringen in 1951, here we are, which really a worldwide network of Hasidim and a mission and an army that every day comes a little bit closer. And I want to thank you for your contribution tonight, but I mostly want to thank you for all of your hard work and your continuing hard work. I wish we had more time. I would have asked questions to the people who attended here. I'm sure they have a lot of questions. I think Rabbi knew this is a good enough of an idea that we should do it at least once a month with as many shluchim as possible, because it is living proof that Jewry is not just alive and well, it is on the cusp of something enormous. And it is up to us just to put the final, take that final step so that we can embrace a better day. So thank you all. Thank you all for your contribution.
Thank you. We're looking forward to having you here in Tulsa. So next time you pass,
I'll make a trip.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you, my dear fellow Shluchim. It's a privilege and honor to say those words. We thank you for your inspiration. The message ultimately to each and every one of us, as the Rebbe declared more than once, is we are all Shluchim. We're all ambassadors of Hashem. We all have that critical responsibility and privilege and ability to make a difference, to reach out to a fellow Jew, to warm a Jewish heart, spiritually, materially, and to light up the whole world, each one in our own unique way. So L'chaim, David, I knew you'd be great, but I didn't think you'd be this good. Really, you surpassed expectations. You brought out the best. You made it feel like a real Fabrengen, not just a clinical interview. So L'chaim, dear friends, all of you listening, I'm sure you're inspired. I'm seeing you already getting feedback as the Fabrengen progresses. And let's hope, pray, actually demand of the Almighty. Enough, Golus, look at what your children are doing. Look what the Rebbe has accomplished. It's time already for all of us to come home, to be reunited with our Rebbe, all of us in our homeland, every Jew, not one Jew left behind. And that simcha, that warmth will illuminate and irradiate and embrace the entire world, every human being on the planet. We can't wait for that day. May it happen without delay. L'chaim, l'chaim.
L'chaim,
Thank you
l'chaim.
so much. L'chaim. Okay, so this formally ends this part of the program. I'm going to disconnect. And for those who want to reconnect on the regular Zoom, we're going to learn one of the discourses, one of the memorim that the Rebbe said in connection with Yud Shvat. So those who would like to can come back on and we will learn together. Yasher koyach again. A gute Woche and gut Yom Tov.
Vach.